takeaways, consistency, do it for 6+ months. Don't sell in the first message would be kind of the second thing that I would say. Work on building a connection. And the third thing that I would say is be a human. At the end of the day, if you wouldn't say it in real life, don't say it virtually. Like, how can I provide value? And if you are laser focused on providing value for the other person, good things will happen. The last takeaway is, we didn't talk about it, but I got to give a shout out. I love what y'all are doing at Conquer, the best sales enablement platform out there. The service that y'all provide to your clients is amazing. I've been able to see it firsthand.
Yeah.
And so I would be remiss if I didn't talk about it on this podcast here, and just keep doing what you're doing. And I'm grateful to be alongside and learning from y'all in that space.
Hey, welcome to the Future of Selling podcast. My name is Rick Smith. I'm your host. I'm the Chief Customer Officer at Conquer. Conquer is a sales engagement platform, sales communication platform, sitting directly inside of Salesforce. And we work with and serve some of the largest enterprise companies in the world. So I've been around sales for a good bit of my career as a COO and CEO of a sales enablement company, and also Chief Revenue Officer, of course, now Chief Customer Officer. But enough about me. I want to talk about our guest today, right? So today's guest is Harris Vanderoth. So Harris is the founder of Linked Revenue, and Linked Revenue is a marketing and services company that works with individuals to build their brand on LinkedIn, right, in order to drive more B2B sales opportunities. So anyway, Harris, thanks for being on. Appreciate it. Welcome.
Excited to be here, Rick. Thanks so much for having me. Looking forward to it.
Appreciate you taking time today. Hey, before we get going with some really, in-depth questions, I got a couple of fun facts I wanted to share with the audience, right? And a couple of these are, they're all fun facts, but there's the last one I didn't know about, so it's pretty interesting. So anyway, you're I don't know if I say a long time or a multi-time entrepreneur. So Linked Revenue is not the only the only effort that you've done, only venture that you've taken. So hopefully we'll hear some more about that as we go. You're also a fairly new father, Brooks, right? Your son.
Yep.
How old is Brooks now?
18 months.
18 months. Right. And is the family are they continuing to grow and all those things?
I got a girl coming at the end of the year.
I love it.
Coming at the end of the year.
Yeah, little girls will break your heart, man. It's just when you see them, it's awesome. So, all right, little girl coming at the end of the year. So also you and I have been working together for about a year now, right? And so been a good year, been a good partnership. Really appreciate, man, just all the things that I've learned from you along the way about just kind of building brand and using LinkedIn as leveraging that as a tool has been phenomenal. So hopefully we'll get into some of that. But appreciate you. Here's what I didn't know. I didn't realize until I started doing a little bit more research for the podcast that you are an experienced leadership coach and a mental and performance coach. So that's pretty incredible. And I wish I'd have known that, because I post a lot on LinkedIn about the continuum of, my best self and my not best self, that's in all of it. But, on some of those days when I'm trending down a bit, I could have called you and said, man, need some mental coaching.
Opportunity's still there. Call anytime. But you got a lot to teach me on that side too. So
I love it. Good deal. And of course, now you're the founder and the CEO of Linked Revenue. So that's great. So anyway, some good fun facts about you. Appreciate again you being on the podcast today. So do me a favor, tell us. And by the way, I'm going to be taking some notes probably as we go. So if I'm looking down and not paying attention, I'm just trying to make sure I get some good notes as we go through here. But tell us about Linked Revenue, right? Tell us about the origin story of Linked Revenue and kind of why you started it. And, maybe that goes back into a little bit of some of the other companies that you started, but I want to just pause there and open it up to you. Tell us about the origin story.
Yeah, it's a pretty good founder story, if I do say so myself, just in the sense of it.
You can say it.
It came to me. It came to me.
Right.
I didn't set out to start a LinkedIn agency, if you will, but actually the idea came to me. So, and it goes back to coaching as well. So the story starts in 2015, 2016, when I actually had the opportunity to be coached myself. So I was lucky to get connected to an individual who was going through a leadership coaching program, and he and I just happened to meet at the right time. And he said, hey Harris, I'm going through a program. As part of that, I have to take on a client. Do you want to do it? And I said, I have no idea what leadership coaching is, but you seem like a good guy. Let's give it a shot.
Right.
I had a baseball background. I had a sports background, so I knew what coaching was, but not leadership coaching.
Yeah.
But I gave it a shot, and we had 10 sessions, and it truly changed my life. It
Wow.
I think of my life as living on autopilot before being coached, and now what I try to do, and I'm not perfect by any means, but try to live with more intention and think about my actions. And that coaching session really allowed me to do that, the coaching sessions. And one of the things that it also opened up was like, I really want to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
It's deep in me. I realized if I spend my whole career working for somebody else, that's going to be a failure to me, just based off of like who I am, how I'm hardwired, and what matters. And so that coaching experience changed my life. And I said, what you just did for me, I want to go do for other people. So I
Right.
went and got certified as a coach. I was the youngest person in the class by probably 30 years. I think I was
Right.
25 years old. The next youngest leadership
Everybody
coach at the
else in their third act. You're like,
yeah,
like,
the
you're like, let's
next
go, man.
youngest at American University was probably 55.
Yeah.
And I said, this is really awesome. And so I learned some coaching skills that really helped me. And then I went and I worked for a leadership development, organizational development company,
Yeah.
doing business development for them. And so this is going to get into the LinkedIn part.
Yes.
So what we would do was we would go to organizations and in person and do Myers-Briggs workshops, emotional intelligence, change, resilience, all those quote soft skills, but we
Right.
would physically go to their offices.
Right.
And then COVID came about 2, 3 months into the job and said, good luck, your business is torched. And it was like, all right, we got to figure out something to do.
Yeah.
And so during that time when everybody was trying to figure out what to do and where to spend their time, I took a social selling course. So this was in January of 2020, I guess was when
Right.
whenever the pandemic started. And I said, this is really interesting. And I started to post regularly on Twitter and LinkedIn around leadership development, organizational development, emotional intelligence, what we were doing. And I started to pick up some traction. I was like, there's something to this.
Yeah.
And we started getting some clients from it. And I honestly just like kept sticking with it. So while I was working business development for this company, I was also just consistently sharing content on LinkedIn.
Right.
That organizational development, emotional intelligence stuff kind of shifted into the onboarding space, which then, and here comes the kicker, I had a meeting with one of my new hire onboarding clients. We were
Right.
getting breakfast, and he said, the new hire onboarding stuff is good, but like, one, we're not hiring right now. And two, without saying this, we don't really care that much about our employees to invest in onboarding. He didn't say that, but he essentially said
Yeah,
that.
you could
And he
read it.
goes,
Yeah.
but he goes, what you're doing on LinkedIn is really interesting. How do you do it? Tell me about it. And I said, okay, here's my process. Here's my strategy. Here's what we've achieved.
Yeah.
And he goes, I don't have time, capacity to learn that, but will you do it for me? And I
Right.
said, will you pay me to do it? And honestly, that's where the business was launched. Within a month, I dropped everything on the onboarding side, fully went into this LinkedIn world, and it's
Yeah.
been the best thing that I've ever done. So I stumbled into it.
Yeah. That's it is a powerful story, and how, how that opportunity just kind of came to you. Also, though, just the coaching and how that, I mean, did you know you wanted to be an entrepreneur? Did you have that all the time, and somehow the coaching just began to clear, kind of clear your head and clear your mind and your heart, and you go, okay, this is really what I want to do? Or was it something that was kind of revealed to you when you were in this, in the, in these coaching sessions?
So a combination of both. I mean, one of the things also that we went through, and I'm happy to talk about it here. I've talked about it publicly before. I had a baseball background. I mentioned I was drafted out of high school,
Yeah.
and then I got something called the yips in college, which is basically, for anybody who doesn't know what that is, it's when your brain and your arms stop talking.
Oh, wow.
So I was a pitcher who couldn't pitch anymore. I physically was like unable. I guess not physically, mentally, I was unable to do it, and
Yeah.
I struggled immensely with identity issues around like who I was when I was no longer a baseball player. And so the coaching helped me work through that. And
Yeah.
then what came out of that was like, well, I want my next step, my next journey to be an entrepreneur. Like
Yeah.
that's an identity that I can wrap my mind around that's powerful to me.
Yeah.
And so I was working through a really tough time into this entrepreneurial journey. It was like, okay, how do I do this now?
Yeah.
And I'd always wanted to do it. I kind of had entrepreneurial startups while I was working full time in business development.
Right.
None of them really took off, but I think that those three quote failures were what helped this one be a pretty big success.
Got it. Yeah, that is a really interesting origin story and how you got to that. So LinkedIn, I did a little bit of research. Tell me if these numbers are right. So LinkedIn has over 900 million users, which blows me away. 58 million registered companies and global reach, obviously. But what I didn't realize was that, and again, tell me if I've got this right, is that 75% of the users of LinkedIn are outside the United States. That's incredible. That's an incredible stat. So,
Yeah, yeah.
um, so
I will say they a lot of the LinkedIn employees have like we just hit a billion as their like cover photo. So I think actually now it's a billion
wow.
people on
That's
LinkedIn.
that's
Yeah.
that's incredible. So you're focused in on LinkedIn. I know you do some other social media, but why? What is it that's kind of got you focused on LinkedIn? Is it just the sheer numbers, or is it something else? Why LinkedIn versus whatever else?
Yeah. At the end of the day, like what I have a passion for and what I love is business development and sales. And so marketing is fine and interesting, but
Right.
like if what you're not doing is not driving sales and and new business development and partnerships, like it's not that interesting to me. And so the
Yeah.
other ones are interesting from like a marketing perspective. What I love is like the direct sales understanding that you get from LinkedIn. Like I can see which one of my prospects are liking and commenting. I can see which one of my prospects are connecting with me. The data within LinkedIn from like a business development and sales and new partnership perspective is unmatched. And so for somebody who cares about driving business revenue and cares about business, like LinkedIn is the place to be. I love B2B. I know B2B really well. It's where I've spent my whole career. And so I do a little bit on the Twitter side, and people are always like, hey, what do you think about this and that? And I know it somewhat, but like I inhale and spend 24 hours a day on LinkedIn.
Right.
And so it's something that I know really well. And that's why I love just like niching down into what I know well.
Yeah, yeah, and I assume because the gentleman that kind of pulled you into this to begin with, he was looking at what you were doing on LinkedIn, not so much the other web social medias, and so yeah, that makes it natural, kind of natural fit there. How does a professional do this? Someone that you would work with, right? If somebody's listening to the podcast and they're like, yeah, that sounds kind of interesting. So how do they use LinkedIn to build their personal brand? I may not know what we've done, but kind of talk that through if it's somebody who's like, yeah, that sounds like an interesting thing I should be thinking about is building my brand on LinkedIn. What does that look like? How do they get started?
Couple thoughts around it, and I could probably talk for like 24 straight hours about it, but I'll try to like condense this into like a couple minutes here. But the number one thing that a lot of people don't do is like set up their profile for success. So do you have a good looking picture? Do you have a good looking cover photo? Is your about section redone? I cannot tell you how many times I do presentations or I talk with an executive and they're like, yeah, I just haven't like updated my about section in 15 years.
Yeah,
And so why I don't think that's a good idea is because when you get on a sales call with somebody or a client call, the first thing they're going to do is probably Google you. And LinkedIn is probably going to be one of the first two things that comes up, depending on who.
right.
And so then once they click on your profile, that's your landing page for like who you are as a professional. You want that about section to like tell your story and like come to life and like help me understand Rick. And one of the things that I love about the about section is you can be personal in there.
Yeah,
And that research that you did on me that helped us build a connection, build a relationship, probably a lot came from the about section. And so similar to what you just did, now we have a very close connection in a world where that's my whole goal is like to build that connection and build deep connection with people. And so I
right.
have on there that I have an 18-month-old son, that I've been to 50 states, that I had the yips, that I am a leadership coach. So like now we have that connection in a world where otherwise we wouldn't if you're like, oh, it's a bio that I used 15 years ago.
Right.
So setting your profile up for success would be the thing that is kind of table stakes and you need to get started. The second thing I would say, and this is more like what a lot of people struggle with, is they do it for a week or they do it for 2 weeks and then they stop because they say it's like, quote, not working. If you're not going to commit to doing this for 6 months, you're not going to start to see success. Like you really have to commit to the long game and be willing to like stay consistent with it.
Yeah,
And the final thing that I'll say on here is like, okay, what do you, a lot of that is like, okay, how do I stay consistent? What do I post about? And so if you don't have somebody interviewing you, which is always a good model, there's three ways that I think you can create content. One, and I like to make things as simple as possible. One is things that you say to a prospect or a client that they find interesting. So you're on a call during the week and you say something and Rick starts to shake his head. He's like, oh wow, that's pretty interesting. That's your best content. Cause like that person, other people like that person are also going to find it interesting. The second thing is something that someone said to you that you found interesting, because like there's other people like you on LinkedIn. So if you found it interesting, other people are going to find it interesting. Like that, this could be a really interesting employee engagement tactic or idea. Whatever it is that someone said to you, you're like, wow, that was really interesting and intriguing, is the second one. The third is a podcast or an article that you read, but instead of just sharing, hey, here's this article from Harvard Business Review about the top 5 things that leaders need. Like nobody wants to read what Harvard Business Review has to
Right.
say about that. How does that relate to Rick? Like how does that relate to your career and what you care about? So inhale the article, put your own spin on it, and that's what LinkedIn cares about.
Yeah.
Those are the 3 things that I think about. And then if you have the opportunity, somebody interviewing you or you interviewing yourself, it's another good way to kind of create
Yeah.
content.
Yeah. So I'm gonna repeat those real quick just to make sure I got them. So as far as content, so if I'm talking to a client or a prospect this week and I kind of see what I'm, give me the not you're right, but that's right. And they're kind of shaking their heads. So that's a great way or a great place to get content. If I'm in a meeting and I hear someone else say something and I'm going, oh my gosh. In other words, if I got the aha and then emotional rush and the dopamine, right, is firing, I need to go post on that, right? I need to figure out how do I turn that into, and matter of fact, earlier this week, someone said something and I wrote it down. I'm like, I'm going to figure that out. That's a post, man. But,
Exactly.
but it's
Exactly.
because I like it, right? It resonated. And again, it's an aha moment. And then the last one is a podcast or article. So if you listen to something, you hear something, you read something, don't just post the article or the podcast, but tell me. And I always think about it like this: what does it say? What does it mean? How am I going to apply it? Those are
Right.
kind of the first 3 steps of Bloom's taxonomy, right? But those are the 3 right there.
Yeah, and I'll make like let me give you real examples from things that have come up in my life. So the first one is something that I said that somebody was shaking their head. So I was giving a presentation recently for like a CEO group in Ohio, and we probably spent 30 minutes talking about this concept of like personal posts versus business posts on LinkedIn.
Right.
And I said, my model and like the formula that I use is 80% business to 20% personal. When I think about like 5 posts, 4 of them I want to be on business, one of those should be personal.
Yeah.
And that really struck a chord with a lot of people. They're like, that makes sense. Like,
Right.
like I heard from CEOs being like, I
Yeah.
like that idea. Like, it's not too much, but it's also not never. Like, people are actually getting to know you and understand you. And
Right.
so the conversations around the table made me feel like I want other people who are in that mode, who are in that role, a CEO of a whatever 1 million, 5 million, $10 million business to get that information. So let me share that. So that's something I said that I could tell resonate with other people. The
Right.
second one is not really related to what I do, but I thought it was really interesting. Was I was having a sales call with the co-founder of a $2 billion hedge fund. He was in his process of hiring somebody,
Right.
and I said, uh, "What's your process for hiring?" And he said, I'll be honest with you, and my HR team would not like this, but so then I knew, I'm like, all right, this is
You're
gonna
like,
be
I
good.
gotta write this
I'm
down.
like, this is gonna be good. He's like, I can tell immediately if somebody will be a good hire for us based off of one question. And that question is, do you like puzzles? He's like, if somebody doesn't like puzzles, they are not going to be good in this role.
Okay, I'm writing it down.
And so I was like, that is really interesting. I was like, I know my HR followers and connect and audience are gonna not like this because like I know that goes against every hiring policy possible. That's really interesting. And now I'm trying to think like when I hire for our team, what's our one question? Like what's
Right.
something that every high achiever in our organization
Yeah.
has that's the same? And to him, it's puzzles. I would
Right.
be terrible at that role because I hate puzzles.
Right.
But I thought
Right.
it was a really interesting piece of content. So I shared it, got 10,000 impressions. And so I'm like, cool, this clearly resonates. And it brought out some people being like, that's the worst hiring policy ever. But
Sure. Right. Right.
eyeballs are eyeballs. And,
It's
and
a
some
good
people,
no, it's a good question. I used to ask a question back in the day when was hiring project managers. I used to ask them, tell me about how you load the dishwasher.
hmm,
And, just because, is it all over the place or is it, weird? So anyway,
it's a
I mean,
great
go for it.
question. I would be a bad project manager also because I'm like kind of all over the place. And my wife is like the boom, 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 boom has to go here.
Right, right, right. Got it. Got it. Okay. So cool. So great examples of good content. You said something that sparked it kind of brought 2 questions I was thinking about. So one is this I mean, is this the future selling, right? Is this how it works, right? I mean, used to be email, right? And they, rewind 10 years ago before, whatever. There were these, we had these formulas, right? Send out X number of emails, you get X number of responses, turn that into X number of conversations, turn opportunity, boom, boom, boom. But email, I mean, why not just continue that? What to kind of talk about that transition from like email based and that kind of reach out to this type of reach out. And then I've got a follow-up question for you.
Yeah, I think of business development as having four channels essentially, is how I try to break it down. I always try to break things down as simply as
Okay.
possible. But the first one is in person. Anytime you can meet a prospect in person, it is always going to be the best. And that will never change. I just think as humans, we connect at a deeper level when we meet people in person. You and I have talked a lot about this, and I,
Yeah.
I just think it's even more important post-pandemic world when less people are willing to do it. And I love that less people are willing to do it. I know you love that
Yeah.
less and less people willing to meet in person is a slam dunk for the people who are willing to put in the work to meet in person. So
Yeah.
in person is always the best. There are three other channels that I think: email, phone, and social selling, which we'll call for B2B LinkedIn. I think email is getting almost impossible to get somebody's response. We are all inundated with
Right.
emails, and like metrics that it needs to clear to actually get into somebody's inbox are so hard. My spam is all sales emails that I would never see because I don't check spam because nobody ever
Right.
checks spam. So like email, I think is dead. Phone, I think, still works in some industries, but I think it's getting harder and harder from a generational perspective to get people to be willing to make cold calls all day. I
Right.
think that was the thing that people did. I mean, I did it my first gig out of college, but like I think it's less and less. It's a social really, and like LinkedIn is a place where you can generate conversations. You can get people from cold to warm. And what I love about LinkedIn versus email is like you have a personality if you choose to on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Like rather than Harris at link-revenue.com, Harris Fanaroff on LinkedIn has posted thousands of times and I know what Harris cares about.
Yeah.
And so if someone is somewhat intrigued with what I am selling, they're going to click on my profile and see what I'm about. You can't do that on the email.
Right.
There's just nothing there,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
why I love and I think it's only becoming more and more, and people buy from people at the end of the day. So I talk to a
Yeah.
lot of people who are like, hey, I want to make our company page amazing, blah, blah,
Right.
blah. And I'm like, that's cool. But like your founder, your chief revenue officer, your chief marketing officer should also be out there talking about what you're doing. Because at the end of the day, people buy from
Yeah.
people.
Gotcha. So I read so that makes sense, right? And I've been in a couple of conferences where we're talking about emails and just how hard it is to get through and that, that I did, but it's not as certainly not as powerful as it used to be. And then this morning, and now I can't find the article, it popped up on my phone, but it was really interesting. It said that it was the information economy. Now it's the relationship economy. And
Mm,
that's really, and so I think that's what you're saying, right? I mean, we're at this point where, I mean, it's about trying to connect with people. It's about having soft skills have always been important, right? But it is about building the relationship. It's not just a cold email and cold, kind of approach to selling. It's about building the relationship first. And I know for you and some of the things that you've taught me on LinkedIn is just to be patient, right? And so if I think about that, I guess maybe two questions come from that. One, if I'm going to get started, we kind of talked about you kind of gave us like 6 months commitment, right? That's one thing. So don't get tired. Um, what does it look like though? Like how am I going to know that I'm making some progress? Over this 6 month period. I mean, how do I know if it's working, if it's not working? I mean, what are the signs of what does good look?
yeah,
You know?
yeah. Good question. And it is sometimes hard to monetize because someone might shoot you an email or shoot you a text based off of seeing you on LinkedIn.
Yeah,
So that does make it somewhat challenging. But one of the things that so it looks like every so often, either your clients or your prospects are engaging with what you're doing on LinkedIn, and you can track that on LinkedIn, unlike you can do really on any other social platform. So it's who's engaging with what you're doing because then Rick is staying top of mind for them. So for current clients, that's a really good thing because, hey, I'm thinking about Rick. And for prospects, that's also a really, really good thing. So that's one way that you can kind of monitor and figure that out. The other thing, and this kind of kills me about what I do in my business, but like when you go out there in the real world, people will say, "Hey Harris, I love what you're doing on LinkedIn," and and I see it all the time, and I read it, and my response is like, "You haven't liked it or commented on a single thing in 4 years. Like, come on, just show me some love one time." And I'm joking aside, but like it's so important to remember that like the silent lurkers are the majority of the people on LinkedIn, but they're reading. And they might hit you up in a year or 2 years or 5 years down the road for what you have. But like what I love about creating content consistently on LinkedIn is like it increases your ability to get lucky. Like for people to think about you in a world where it's so hard to get their attention,
Yeah.
and not just them, but the people they're connected to. So like somebody is interested in a sales engagement platform, like not only is your network now knows that you're the guy around that, but also like they could be golfing with a chief revenue officer who needs a new sales engagement platform. Yeah, my buddy Rick is posting about that all the time. He's really smart. Like, let me connect you guys. Does that happen without you posting on LinkedIn? I don't know. I don't think so.
Right.
But that is one of the things that just like increases your ability to get lucky
Yeah.
is in business development is one of the reasons why I love it so much.
Yeah. Got it. Got it. Any other kind of pro tips, right? Other than going
Yeah.
out and, definitely update my profile, update about me, stick to it for 6 months. I mean, what are some other pro tips that someone might, like top two or three that you got to do this, you got to do that, do the other?
Yeah. I'm super, super passionate. I post about this all the time. LinkedIn, and this is ironic coming from the linked revenue guy, but like it shouldn't be used as a place to sell. It should be used as a place to take somebody from very cold to warm,
Right.
like very cold relationship to warm. So many people reach out and they're like, hey, Rick, you got to buy my service or product. And it just blows my mind because you wouldn't do that at a conference. It doesn't make any sense. Like, I want to provide Rick so much value that Rick's like, yeah, Harris, it's worth 30 minutes of my time to talk with you.
Yeah.
And that's the way that it should be done. It could be interviewing Rick for a white paper that you're putting together with some of his peers, putting on a dinner in a city, uh, like asking Rick to be on your podcast. Like, get Rick from cold to a little bit warmer.
Right.
And then trust that 3, 6, 9, 12 months down the road, you've planted enough seeds that sales will start to happen.
Yeah.
I think everybody goes right for the sale and that nobody wants to be like immediately sold to.
Yeah.
And so I think in the messages, focus on like providing value to that person. Like what's something that they're going to want to do that they care about,
Yeah.
not just on what you have as a product or service.
Yeah. Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. I know it just kind of, I'm going to dig down on that just a little bit. And I love your phrase. You're trying to take them from cold to warm because since I've been working with you over the last year, I don't know, man, I probably quadrupled, right? The number of followers and things like I have. I mean, it's been just your approach is phenomenal and it's working, right? Which is great. But because of that, I get more people trying to connect with me, right? And I mean, like yesterday, I mean, someone's, hey, great, we're connected. By the way, can I sell you this? I mean, it wasn't quite that
Yeah,
forward,
yeah.
but it was close. And I've got a friend who I was talking to him about what I'm doing on LinkedIn and working with you and stuff. And he's in sales, been in sales a long time. And he said that he let me know that he's kind of done the same thing, right? Where he's reaching out and trying to, connect with people and then immediately sell them something, and then finding out that they just they don't want to talk, right? I mean, and he's like, what
Yeah,
am I doing wrong? I'm like, no, you got to build the relationship, man. That's what it's about. So I love your phrase, going from cold to warm. That really is the focus, right? That
exactly.
so if I'm able to take someone that I don't know and get that relationship warm where he's commenting or she's commenting or giving me thumbs up, then really I've accomplished what I want to accomplish.
Exa
With
ex Exactly right. The other thing, yeah, you're exactly right, and so many people do what your friend was saying, and they just immediately, "Oh, let me go pitch." Nobody wants to be pitched to immediately. And the
Yeah,
other thing that, like, creating content consistently, like, someone will message you and be like, "I really like what you're about." If you're never and that could be a prospect, and if you're never creating content, that's never gonna happen. I had somebody who was like, "Hey," and he's a great prospect for me. He's like, "I've been reading every one of your posts for 2 years, decided to reach out and have a conversation with you."
wow, yeah,
2 years, and so that doesn't happen if I don't continuously keep doing it.
yeah,
The thing is, you have to do it for the long haul, and
yeah,
so many of us are, like, hardwired for quick success. It's like, "No, no, 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 no."
yeah.
You have to if you want big results, you have to be willing to do it for the long
Just
game.
just keep planting the seeds, right?
Keep planting the seeds. You never know when one's gonna sprout,
Yeah,
and most people stop within a week, within
yeah,
2 weeks, within a month because 'cause they're like, I didn't get that big sale." It's like, "You get a big sale
yeah,
from just sending an email?" Like, come on.
yeah. doesn't happen, right?
Right.
Yeah. I know one of the things you taught me, and I think it's a good lesson, and I'm still trying to get better at it, by the way, is actually setting aside time to make sure that I'm not just posting, right? But I'm also out and I'm commenting on other
Yeah.
people who are posting, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
People that I'm connected with. And that just another way to kind of take people from cold to warm, or maybe even a little bit warmer, right?
100%. It's a big one that a lot of people don't do. Is like, if you have a prospect list of 50, 100, 200, 500, you should be hitting the bell on every one of their profiles. And every time they post, you will get a notification. And it's your job to share something thoughtful, help them out. We're all kind of dopamine, like get a dopamine hit from when somebody likes or comments. And so now Rick was fully cold. Rick's commented on my post 3 times now. It's been something thoughtful, it's been something unique. It's helped me. Now, Rick, who was completely cold to me, I have a little bit of a relationship with Rick.
Yeah.
I'm more likely to respond to Rick's message. Maybe I still won't, but I'm way more likely when I've seen Rick consistently like provide value to me by liking and commenting on what I'm doing. So
Yeah.
that is another great tactic, and you're right, severely underutilized.
AI, right? Last year and a half, it's everywhere. It's getting bigger, and it just keep talking about it, right? Matter of fact, we got a client advisory council coming up in a couple of weeks, and we got a big section on AI. How do you think AI is going to impact what you're doing? Is it going to impact it positively, negatively? I mean, where does it play into this whole relationship? If we're really moving from information-based economy to relationship-based economy, where connecting that's what it's all about. Going back to your 4 channels in person, right? Getting those connections. Talk about AI and how it may impact this.
Yeah, it's something I'm thinking a lot about. And like right now, as we stand on October 10th, 2024, AI generated LinkedIn content is absolutely terrible. And I wish LinkedIn would take it off the platform where it says like write this with AI, because it's always, always, always,
Yeah,
always terrible.
yeah,
Uh, and I think it will get better. I know we're in the early innings of AI,
right.
but what I will say is like the best content on LinkedIn is something that only Rick could write,
Yeah,
something only Harris could write. And so it's one of the things that we're thinking a lot about is like, how can we use AI to be more efficient? But at the end of the day, like good content comes from that individual person. And there might be AI that we can use to figure out like what are topics we should ask Rick to talk about, or what are good questions that we should ask Rick. And so that's where AI currently plays a role in what we do.
correct.
But when it comes to like creating the content, I think like AI is terrible at
Yeah,
creating interesting content. Like it will write the most boring article that nobody would ever want to read. I want to read like what Rick's thinking about on his walks, like on Saturday, and I want to hear the story about the rocks in your backpack. And AI is not writing that. Like that's the type of stuff that gets the most engagement on LinkedIn. It helps you like build that genuine connection.
yeah,
And to the stage that AI is at now, we're nowhere close to like being able to do that.
yeah, yeah. Gotcha. So that's probably, if somebody, then I'm going to take that because I had kind of a question around, okay, what are some don'ts? That's probably a don't, right? I mean, maybe you use AI to again create questions for you to answer, but use your own experiences, right? It's almost
100%.
like, how do you get to the peak of a mountain? You hike it. You can't get
Right.
to the peak, you can't get there without the hike, right? It just doesn't happen. I think maybe sometimes people think AI will get you to the peak, and it's just, and take out all the effort. But I know for
Yeah.
me in posting, the ones I've got the most reaction on have been ones that were, you know, kind of from the heart, kind of from, experiences and things like that. I mean, and those are the ones that really resonate. So, in
A
fact, I
hundred.
did one a while back on
Yeah.
the top 10 life lessons from Rocky, and it popped up on my feed. I was like, man, I was so proud of that, and
It's awesome.
it came to me
Yeah.
in like, I don't know, 10 minutes, when I was sitting in my driveway one day. And anyway, it
I
just,
did one. No, I love it, and you're right. And I mean, even my 2080 thing that I talked about at the beginning of personal to business, I'm like, maybe it should be closer to 40, 60 or whatever, because like I posted something the other day, and you're not gonna like this one because I know you're a Cowboys fan, but I posted something the other day about like how the 3 hour, like as a founder, it's hard to kind of take time for yourself. But I take the 3 hours on Sunday or Monday or whatever, Thursday night, whenever it is,
yeah,
to watch. And I really don't, I'm not on email, I'm not texting my clients. And I really do take that time. And I had like 4 prospects reach out to me after, be like, hey, that message really resonated with me. Like I do the same thing, but it's with this or with that.
yeah.
And then like I had 4 sales calls booked right after that, and had nothing to do
Wow.
with what I talk about on LinkedIn. Nothing, nothing. But
Yeah.
like that personal connection to human was like, maybe that was the key that needed that person to send that message to me. And now I have a reason to reach out to them and have a conversation. And so it's like building that thread and like making it honestly like less awkward. Like those were 4 people that I would have loved to reach out to, but like, was I going to cold outreach to them? But like now they kind of gave me an in, and it's like, yeah, let me talk about what you're doing. They're like, oh yeah, I've been wanting to be more active on LinkedIn. It's like,
Yeah.
cool. Let's talk about what you need. And like way less awkward, way less pushy. And so it's just something that never would happen without this.
Yeah. Yeah. Gotcha. That's awesome. That's a great story. Great story.
We got to get you to post more Cowboys content.
And
Unfortunately, I
you
think
know what?
is the lesson there.
I've had a couple of games I've turned off early lately that I shouldn't have turned off early, and then Cowboys was one of them. So anyway, that hurts. All right. Well, I know you got, we got to let you go here in just a minute, cause you got some other things you got to do, but, this has been good. Two things. One, I kind of want to about what's next for you. Right. And then also I'm really passionate about when I do podcasts, I want to give takeaways, right? I want to have a great conversation and an enjoyable conversation that people can listen to and go, yeah, it was fun. But also before we let you go, I want to get some takeaways. But first, what's next for you, for Harris, for Link Revenue? I mean, where does it go?
Yeah, yeah. Appreciate you asking. Thank you for having me on. I am loving being a founder. It is like a total dream come true. I love growing a team. I'm making another football quote, but the head coach of the Commander says, "I love doing hard shit with good people." Excuse my language. If we can't curse on here, but it's just I just love
Okay.
that quote. I think about it all the time when we're growing internally, when I'm working with people. Like everything you're going to do in any business is hard, shit. And
Right.
I just love doing it with good people, with the clients that we work with internally, continue to add people. So as long as we keep doing that, I think good things will happen. And I'm just
Okay.
loving being a founder. I love the text at 10 p.m., the getting on the call at 6 a.m. because we're working with an Australian client. Like
Yeah.
I love that stuff. So that's where we're headed. And I'm just grateful for honestly everything that's come my way.
Got
As
it.
far as takeaways, consistency, do it for 6+ months.
Okay.
Don't
7.
sell in the first message would be kind of the second thing that I would say. Work on building a connection.
Yeah.
And the third thing that I would say is be a human. At the end of the day, if you wouldn't say it in real life, don't say it virtually. Like,
Yeah.
how can I provide value? And if you are laser focused on providing value for the other person, good things will happen. The last takeaway is we didn't talk about it, but I got to give a shout out. I love what y'all are doing at Conquer. Uh, the best sales enablement platform out there. The service that you all provide to your clients is amazing. I've been able to see it firsthand.
Yeah.
And so I would be remiss if I didn't talk about it on this podcast here and just keep doing what you're doing. And I'm grateful to be alongside and learning from you all in that space.
Yeah. Well, hey, we appreciate that. Appreciate all the work you've done with us. And I agree, man. We got some great clients out there, enterprise and some, smaller than that. And, you know, we really focus in on just trying to deliver client value to them, right? And product that meets or hopefully exceeds expectations, an exceptional client experience, and end of the day, trying to make sure that we demonstrate a return on our investment. We can keep doing those things. We're gonna continue to grow as well. So appreciate you bringing that up. But great takeaways. So be a human, right? Be sure and be consistent. Also, I wrote down as we were kind of going through this, you know, find a way to get that content out there and then also hit the bell, right? Hit the bell and comment on people's, what other people are saying out there. So, excellent. All right.
Yeah.
Well, Harris, man, I appreciate it. I know we'll catch up again soon, but thank you for your time. Thank you for, all your insight and kind of wisdom on really how to build that personal brand. Tell us what you're doing with Link Revenue.
Thanks so much for having me, Rick.
All right. Thanks. Have a good day.